Hi, Tracy Eckert here. It's been a while since I've done this. Today is September 23rd, and I feel like I have something that the Lord wants me to say, and I hope you can hear me because I'm doing this on my own without any help. So let's just hope this turns out. Anyway, I haven't done this since like when that whole coronavirus nonsense started. So it's been a couple of years, but let me just get started. Talking to me for several months now, let's be honest, several years now, about a coming storm. And so he's been speaking very clearly and loudly about that we are entering into the season of that. And I woke up this morning with this song in my head, and it's by The Doors from the 60s, and it's called Riders on the Storm. And I was like, okay, Lord, I hear you. And so I thought I'd jump on here and just share a lot of what I feel like he's saying. So I hope this blesses you. You're welcome to make comments or whatever. And I would appreciate it if you think this has any value to share it, if you would please. So, the Lord told me that we're entering into a season, and it's just a season of the clashing of the swords. And so, we've got Rosh Hashanah starting, which is tomorrow, which is exciting. It's really entering into a whole new 7-year cycle. So, and years ago, when this whole coronavirus started, and I saw the hand of the Lord come down on this timeline, and I saw him just put his hand on the timeline of the enemy who was trying to advance or usurp God's timing. So I thought that was really very interesting, and I think that that's what's happening right now. So I saw this clashing of the sword, and the Lord told me. He said the Exodus is beginning, and he gave me a dream years ago about an Exodus coming. And in the dream, I was there with a lot of our people and um, and we were moving out. We were the camp of the Lord in the dream, and we were moving out. And it was very urgent. It was an urgent time, just like when with Moses and the Jewish people, that it was time for them to move out, and they had to gather all their stuff. And they were called the camp of the Lord. And in the dream, we were called the camp of the Lord. And I heard the audible voice of the Lord say, I'm making a difference between my people and your people, which is a quote from Exodus when he created a Goshen and a place of safety and overshadowing for God's people. And I think that the Lord has been telling me that he is creating a Goshen for his people over the next 3 months. And what I mean by that, Goshen means drawing near. And so those that are his people, he's going to be creating an overshadowing, a Psalm 91 situation where they are covered and protected. But I did hear the clashing of the swords. And so I think things are going to get a little touchy over the next 3 months, is what I heard the Lord tell me. And he said to me, January, oh January, and he kept saying that, and I was like, this is crazy. It's kind of sounded like a song, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm Kim Clement. But he said January, oh January, and I saw just an ash heap, and I saw an army of the Lord raised up out of this ash heap, and they were strong and mighty and ready for battle. And again, anytime you have an exodus, actually, I wrote about this, like for 20 years, the Lord's been telling me about the battle between the saints and the people of Babylon, God's end time temple. This is not a book plug, but this is a prophetic book. God talked to me over a period of 20 years, and I just wrote down everything that he said about the coming battle between these prophets of Baal, these worshipers of Satan, that are trying to create a Babylonian system, where they would enslave God's people, and then God's people, and God's had just about enough of this, and he is pulling us out of this system. That's what's happening. So it started with coronavirus. He told me coronavirus was the homecoming. Encouraged that what's happening is Haggai 2. I'm going to shake everything that can be shaken. Again, it's in the book, so that all will come to the desire of Jesus, the Son of God. And he said several things that during this Exodus, as it was in the days of old, every time there was an Exodus, there was an outpouring of silver and gold for God's people to rebuild a place. We will worship him in spirit and in truth. And that's what the Lord is looking for. He's looking for his bride. He will have a harvest that is at the end of the age, and he will have his way. And nothing that the enemy can do can thwart God's timing and God's timeline. So, several things in Haggai that never came to pass during the rebuilding of the second temple, and during the time of the leadership of Zerubbabel, was the silver and the gold are going to be poured out. That means that there is going to be provision, and God is resourcing his people for this great harvest. And he said that he would also pour out his glory. So the glory of the Lord, and I'm not talking about a revival, I'm talking about a third great awakening. I'm talking about the glory of God that's never been seen in the earth, that's being poured out into his houses of prayer. And when I say houses of prayer, I'm not talking about physical buildings, even though it may happen in a physical building. I'm talking about, we are the house of prayer. We are these houses of prayer, and those that have been refined in the fire and allowed themselves to be refined in the fire out of Revelation 3, the Laodicean churches, those that have allowed themselves to be perfected as gold, those will be the ones that will carry the glory of the Lord with incredible signs and wonders. If I stop a little bit, it's because my phone is doing that little circular round thing and it's pausing. So anyway, just wanted you to be encouraged about what the Lord is doing. It's going to be a little nerve-wracking, and but I don't want you to be afraid, because you are Goshen, and God is covering his people under the shadow of his wings. And so I just want you to be very prayerful about everything that you're supposed to do over the next 3 months. I think it would be prudent for you to have food and water, and maybe some cash on hand. If not, don't worry about it. Again, God is going to take care of you, and there's going to be incredible miracles of food multiplication, and water and provision. And so you don't have to worry about not being cared for by the hand of God. So years ago, when I first, most of you know my story, how I got saved by hearing the audible voice of the Lord, and he said, rebuild my temple, hence where the name of the book came from. But um, he gave me a dream, and I just feel like that's exactly what's happening right now. And in the dream, I saw the fall of the Statue of Liberty. And I heard in the dream the audible voice of the Lord, and he said, you haven't taught your sons to battle, but I'm raising up a new generation. And I feel like that's where we are right now. A lot of what's happening in America is coming, God is crumbling it on purpose. So the old guard, and a lot of what's been happening in America that we were unaware of, God is aware of, and he's bringing it down. And in the place of the Statue of Liberty, I saw the tree of life, and it was raised up, and it was beautiful and enormous, and went through the clouds. And young people, um, teenagers and young adults, and it was really every generation, but primarily children and young people stood around it day and night, and they like a sea of people, those that were touching the trees, those that were touching the people who were touching the tree, those had, and so it was just this massive amounts of people that were standing so that just ministering to the tree and following they were sons of God following the Spirit of God, and so they were the sons that knew how to war, they knew how to battle. And then just briefly want to go ahead and tie this up, but the Lord on January the 5th of 2021, when the reigns from Donald Trump to Joe Biden were being handed over close to that time, right before January 6th. I asked the Lord what was going to happen on January 6th. And he gave me a dream that night. And in the dream, I was dressed in the American flag. So I was America in the dream. And in the dream, I had uncovered and recovered an ancient artifact that belonged to America, and I had to keep it hidden and I had to keep it secret. And the Lord, and so my husband and I bought a house at the very top of a mountain, and we drove to the top of this mountain with this ancient artifact. And at the top was our house, and it was at the pinnacle of the mountain, and it had windows that were 360 degrees, and you could see every nation of the earth from the top of this mountain. And when we got there, we had the deed to the house and we had the key to the house. But the former occupants were still there and they were still occupying the house. So we came in and we told them that it was time for them to vacate this house because this house was ours and it had been given to us. And we had the deed and we had the key. So they started packing up all of their stuff. We took possession of the house after they left, and we heard a knock on the door, and we answered the door, and it was an Asian man and a Muslim man with a realtor. And they said, "We want to buy this house." And I said, "This house is no longer for sale." And I slammed the door in their face. And I think it's pretty clear what this means. But, America um, was built on the foundation of the Lord, and He established this nation for His pleasure and for His purposes. And I believe that the ancient artifact that I recovered, that America is recovering, is the Constitution for a constitutional republic. And I think that that's going. God is saying, "I'm giving you back. I'm calling you home." There's a homecoming that's happening, or an exodus, and I believe that we've been given the key from the Lord, and I think that there's a cleanup. I think we're kicking out the old guard, and we're kicking out those who have already been disposed by God, and it's just kind of a clean sweep of what's happening. So I'm encouraged by all that the Lord has told me, and I think that in this clashing of the swords and this sweeping out and evicting those in Washington and those in high places that the Lord has already judged, and He has already said, you have been judged, and I think He's writing with His finger on the wall of their life that you have been judged and found lacking. And so it is time for them to go. And I think that America is now going to say and make the declaration, America is no longer for sale. That the traders have now, it is now time for them to go. So don't be nervous over what's going to happen over the next 3 months. Again, I hope this word is encouraging to you over all that the Lord has spoken to me. There are crazy stuff happening, but don't be surprised, and again, don't be afraid. I want you to know there is a hope for America and a rebirth of America, and this will be our finest hour before the return of the Lord. And I believe time is short, so I don't want to go into that, but I do want to address this. So as we roll into this weekend and the reset, the new year, it is time for us all to make a decision about the God that we serve and the way we're going to live our lives. And it's time for the tree of life to find its rightful place in America again. And so, Father, I thank you for all that are listening. God, I pray for their hearts, God, that you would encourage them, that they would have courage and would be fearless in the days ahead. God, I ask you for strength and resolution for your people, that we would gaze on heaven and on our God, knowing that as we lock eyes with you, Father, that no weapon formed against us will prosper, and that you will keep us hidden under the shadow of your wings. I declare over you Psalm 91, that to those who abide, they will be fully protected and covered. And so I bless you in your mind, in your emotions, and in your physical bodies. In Jesus' name, amen.